Ray Monroe is driving home with his wife Joanne and their 6-year-old daughter Perry after spending Thanksgiving with Joanne's parents. The atmosphere in the car is tense. Joanne complains that they arrived late for dinner because Ray was driving too slowly. She accuses him of always dragging things out and says her parents have noticed. Ray reminds her that he is a recovering alcoholic and part of his recovery means taking things carefully. He admits that he still struggles with the guilt of a car accident years ago when his first wife, Abby, was killed. That tragedy has shaped the way he drives. Joanne does not seem moved. She tells him that he no longer fights for anything, not even for their marriage. Their arguments have become constant, and she wonders if they should stop pretending everything is fine. Before the fight can escalate, Perry interrupts. Her music player has stopped working. Ray admits he forgot to bring extra batteries. To distract her, he starts singing. Perry laughs at his silly song, and for a brief moment, the tension lifts. Then Perry suddenly says she needs to go to the bathroom. Ray pulls into the next gas station. Joanne takes Perry inside while Ray goes to the store. He buys a cup of coffee for himself, a soda for Joanne, and a pack of AA batteries for Perry's player. At the last second, he also picks up 2 miniature bottles of liquor. At the counter, he realizes he does not have enough cash. The store does not accept credit cards. He hesitates, but instead of putting back the liquor, he leaves the batteries behind. When Perry asks about them, Ray lies. He tells her the store was out of stock. Joanne looks at him suspiciously, but says nothing. As they prepare to leave, Perry realizes something else is missing, her small compact mirror. Joanne returns to the restroom to check for it while Ray searches the car. Perry wanders away, stepping near an unfinished construction site next to the gas station. A stray dog emerges from the rubble, growling. Perry cries out for help. Ray hears her and rushes to the site. He yells at the dog, but it refuses to leave. In desperation, he picks up a rock and throws it. The dog runs off, but the sudden movement startles Perry. She slips, falling backward into a deep pit. Ray lunges forward to catch her. He loses his balance and tumbles in as well. They hit the bottom hard. Ray's head slams against concrete. For a moment, everything goes black. In the darkness, he hears a voice. It whispers that they're both gone. When he opens his eyes again, Joanne is climbing down into the pit. She kneels beside Perry, who lies motionless. Joanne screams her daughter's name and cries as if Perry is dead. Then Ray blinks. Suddenly, Perry is moving again, holding her arm in pain. Her arm is broken, but she is alive. Ray lifts her carefully, trying not to hurt her further. He carries her back to the car while Joanne supports them. Joanne wants to call 911, but Ray insists he saw a hospital sign earlier. He says he can get there faster than an ambulance. For the first time in years, he drives recklessly, speeding past cars and swerving into oncoming lanes. Joanne, terrified but impressed, admits she did not think he would still fight for his family. They arrive at the hospital. Ray rushes inside, telling the receptionist that his daughter's arm is fractured. The receptionist calmly tells him to sit and wait. Joanne snaps at Ray, telling him to do something. He goes back to the desk, demanding attention. This time, the receptionist hands him admission papers. As he fills them out, the receptionist quietly takes a phone call. She tells someone named Dr. Bertram that another one has arrived, and she lists Perry's age and blood type. Ray returns to the waiting area, giving Perry's scarf to Joanne so she will not get too hot. Joanne softens, apologizing for being harsh earlier. They share a short laugh, remembering they have not laughed together in months. Moments later, they are called into an office for more paperwork. The secretary asks routine medical questions, but soon moves into personal territory. She asks about Ray's first wife, Abby, and about his alcoholism. She presses them to list Perry as an organ donor. Both Ray and Joanne firmly refuse. At the end of the long interview, the secretary informs them that the hospital does not accept their insurance. Ray promises to pay in cash. The secretary goes to ask an administrator for approval, then returns with a nurse who leads Perry to a room. Ray overhears the secretary making another call, giving Dr. Bertram Perry's information in detail. Soon after, Dr. Bertram arrives. He speaks gently to Perry, making her smile. He examines her arm and confirms it is fractured, but he worries about possible internal injuries. He recommends a CAT scan. Joanne asks about the scratch on Ray's forehead, but Ray brushes it off. He only cares about Perry. A nurse named Voke gives Perry a stuffed animal and prepares to escort her to the lower level for the scan. Only one parent is allowed to accompany her, so Joanne goes with her. Ray stays behind in the waiting area. Exhausted, he leans back in the chair and drifts into sleep. When he wakes, hours have passed. The waiting room is different. The receptionist has changed. Dr. Bertram has gone home. Joanne and Perry have not returned. Ray hurries to the desk, asking about his daughter. The new receptionist searches the system. She finds nothing under Perry's name. No child was admitted. Ray insists there must be a mistake. The receptionist asks for his insurance information. When he offers to pay cash, she says that is not possible. As his head wound begins bleeding again, Ray grows frustrated and demands to see his family. The receptionist calls the lower levels. After a long pause, she hangs up and tells him no children have been seen there in the last 24 hours. Ray's panic turns into fury. He storms into the treatment area, looking for Perry's bed, but the room is occupied by another family. When Ray protests, staff rush to stop him. Security guard Jeff and Dr. Lucado step in, trying to calm him down. Dr. Lucado gently asks Ray to explain everything from the beginning. Ray insists his daughter was here, examined by Dr. Bertram, then taken for a CAT scan. But when Lucado checks the day's paperwork, there is no mention of Perry. Ray becomes increasingly agitated. Then he notices one familiar face, the nurse who escorted Perry earlier. He calls her over, demanding she tell the truth. But the nurse calmly says she only treated Ray for a head wound. She never saw a wife or a child with him. Ray explodes, shouting that she is lying. Security guard Jeff restrains him while the nurse prepares a syringe. Ray struggles, but they inject him with a sedative. His body weakens. He is dragged down a hallway and placed in a private office to rest. Once alone, Ray fights the drowsiness. He searches the cabinets and finds several adrenaline auto-injectors. He jabs himself repeatedly until his heart races and the fog lifts. He smashes the window on the office door and escapes. Stumbling through the corridors, he sees Voke, the same man who had earlier given Perry a toy. Now Voke is wearing a doctor's coat instead of a nurse's uniform. Before Ray can question him, Jeff appears again, chasing him through the halls. The pursuit spills outside. Ray hides in the back of a delivery truck. Jeff searches nearby, but eventually gives up, believing Ray has fled. Ray slips away and makes his way to his car. He clutches Perry's stuffed toy, whispering her name. He is still bleeding and exhausted, but determined. Soon, a police car pulls into the lot. Ray runs to it, waving frantically. The officers get out, and Ray explains everything. He shows them his driver's license and a photo of Joanne and Perry. The officers exchange uneasy looks, but they agree to investigate. Inside the hospital, they question Jeff. He claims Ray became violent and had to be sedated. He insists Ray arrived alone. Dr. Lucado confirms this, saying Ray has been unstable since he first came in. The officers then ask to see the CAT scan area. Ray protests that Joanne and Perry were taken to the lower level, not upstairs. Still, they proceed to the third floor. At the imaging lab, the logs show no record of Perry. The nurses dig through discarded paperwork and find Ray's admission sheet. It lists only him as a patient. Dr. Bertram returns to the hospital. He tells the officers that Ray came in reporting a car accident. Voke treated his head wound and asked Bertram for a second opinion after noticing Ray's erratic behavior. Bertram says he suggested a head scan, but Ray refused, saying he needed to return to his wife, Abby, waiting outside. Ray is stunned. He insists Abby has been dead for years and that Bertram stole that information from the intake questionnaire. The officers then suggest reviewing security footage. Ray watches anxiously as the video plays. He points to the screen, saying Joanne was right beside him, but the footage shows only Ray. His wife and daughter are not there. He protests, insisting the system is faulty. The screen flickers with occasional glitches. Jeff explains it is an old system. The officers remain unconvinced. Ray grows desperate. He begs them to call the gas station clerk. She saw his family, he says. She can confirm everything. The officers agree to reach out. Just then, a nurse enters with an item she claims to have found. It is Perry's yellow scarf. There is blood on it. Ray clutches it tightly, convinced it proves his daughter was here. But the staff argue the blood matches the wound on his own forehead. Dr. Bertram speaks softly, warning Ray that head injuries can create confusion and false memories. He urges him to accept reality. Ray shakes his head, muttering that they are wrong. He insists he is telling the truth. Dr. Jacobs, a psychiatrist, is called in to assess Ray. She approaches him calmly, saying she wants to help. Ray repeats his story about Joanne and Perry being taken by the hospital. His voice trembles with desperation, but he refuses to back down. Jacobs listens closely, then asks about his past. She mentions the car accident that killed his first wife, Abby. She also notes his history of alcoholism, saying the hospital file suggests he relapsed. Ray insists he's been sober for years, swearing that Abby's death pushed him to stop drinking. Jacobs leans in and suggests another possibility, that his injury and emotional trauma may have caused his mind to create false memories. Ray shakes his head furiously, saying that is impossible. He knows what he saw. She proposes a search of the construction site near the gas station. Police agree, bringing an AK-9 unit. Ray insists this is unnecessary, but they drive him back anyway. At the site, dogs quickly uncover Perry's compact mirror. Moments later, they also discover a large pool of blood at the bottom of the pit. The officers examine it and conclude that the volume of blood is far too great for a person to have survived. Jacobs watches Ray carefully. She tells him the truth he has been avoiding. There was no stray dog. In his anger during the argument, Ray threw the rock. It accidentally struck Perry, making her fall. When Joanne confronted him, he shoved her away. She landed on exposed rebar, fatally injured. Ray's eyes go blank. Jacobs explains that his mind created an alternate version of events to shield him from unbearable guilt. He shakes his head, muttering, refusing to accept it. The police move to arrest him on suspicion of murder. As they take his arms, a dog barks in the distance. Ray's eyes widen. He seizes on it as proof that Jacobs is lying, that his story is real. In a frenzy, he wrestles a gun from one of the officers. He points it at Jacobs and orders everyone into the bathroom of the gas station. He locks them inside and takes Jacobs' hospital key card. Ray speeds away in his car, gripping the wheel tightly. His eyes are wide, unblinking. He repeats to himself that he will save his family, no matter what. Back at the hospital, he sneaks in through a side door. He keeps his head down, wearing Jacob's stolen key card. He pauses outside the maternity ward, staring at the rows of newborns. Memories flood back. Abby was pregnant when she died. The words he heard in the pit, "They're both gone," suddenly make sense. Ray forces the memory away and presses on. In an office, he steals a white coat, disguising himself as a doctor. In the elevator, Jeff, the security guard, steps inside. Jeff recognizes him immediately. Ray pulls the gun, demanding Jeff take him to the lower levels. Jeff lunges. A brutal fight erupts in the confined space. They slam into the walls, grappling for the weapon. Finally, Ray manages to pull the trigger. Jeff collapses dead. Ray takes his keys and activates the elevator, descending into the restricted basement. The elevator doors open into a dim, restricted corridor. Ray steps out, clutching the stolen keys in one hand and the gun in the other. His breath is ragged, but his determination drives him forward. The hallway reeks of chemicals. He passes metal carts loaded with sealed coolers. Doctors in scrubs wheel containers marked for transport. One slips open briefly, and Ray glimpses what looks like organs inside. His mind reels. He whispers to himself that the hospital is running an organ harvesting ring. He pushes forward, peering into rooms. Some contain empty surgical tables, others house pale bodies covered with sheets. He clenches his jaw, convinced this is where his family has been taken. At the end of the hall, he spots something familiar. Perry's stuffed toy sits discarded in a trash bin. Ray snatches it, his hands trembling, certain this is proof. Moments later, he bursts into a brightly lit operating room. Doctors and nurses are gathered around Perry, who lies on the table, motionless but alive. She has not yet been cut open. Beside her, Joanne is strapped to a wheelchair, heavily sedated. Ray raises the gun, screaming for everyone to back away. The medical staff freeze. He rushes to Perry's side, shaking her gently, whispering her name. She stirs faintly, still under the effects of medication. When one of the doctors edges forward, Ray fires into a nearby tank of anesthetic gas. The room erupts in a burst of smoke and flame. The staff scatter, choking on the fumes. Ray unstraps Joanne from the wheelchair and pulls her toward the door. He lifts Perry into his arms, holding her tightly. Through the haze, alarms begin to blare, and emergency lights flash red. He stumbles down the corridor with both wife and daughter, shielding them with his body as if enemies are still chasing them. Reaching the parking lot, he forces Joanne into the passenger seat and lays Perry in the back. Ray slams the car door and grips the steering wheel. His chest heaves as he whispers that he saved them. He turns the ignition and speeds away, leaving the hospital engulfed in chaos. On the open road, he speaks softly, promising Joanne that everything will be all right now. He glances in the rearview mirror, smiling at Perry. He says they are together again, and nothing will ever separate them. But the reality is different. The back seat is empty. The passenger side is empty. In the trunk lie two lifeless bodies, Joanne and Perry, hidden from sight. Ray drives into the rising sun, calm and steady, his mind lost in a world where his family is still alive.